Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel. Hello, and welcome to my channel! My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book, The Sorrow of the Sea by Stephen Aryan. This is the third and final book in the Nightingale and the Falcon trilogy. I started reading this book last year, had no idea about it, really hadn't heard anyone talk about it, and I started with The Judas Blossom, and I loved The Judas Blossom. Absolutely loved it. This is a fantastic book. And then I picked up The Blood-Dimmed Tide, and I thought, okay, let's see if he can stick it again. And oh my goodness, Blood-Dimmed Tide is a fantastic sequel. And so I was like, surely, he's very consistent so far. And yes, The Sorrow of the Sea is a superb ending to this trilogy. For those of you who don't know, this is a trilogy about the Mongolian Empire and its invasion of Persia. It's set in the 1200s, and you have a decent cast of characters. Mostly are either from the Mongol royal family or people affected by the Mongol family, by the Khans. So you have the main character of the series is Temujin, and he is the son of the leader of the Ilkhante group. His father is Hulagu, and Hulagu has been the leader for the last while as they push through Persia, push towards new lands. But you also have several other characters. You have the character of Kokachin, who is the forced bride of Hulagu, who is not really keen to be a bride of Hulagu and ends up trying to work against him. And then you have as an assassin. Then you have his Hulagu's general, Kaivan, who was actually someone who hates Hulagu, who is a native Persian who fought against Hulagu, who Hulagu ends up deciding to make a general of his so that he had someone from the area. And then you also have a few other characters that you follow as well. And so this trilogy has been about as the Mongols start moving through Persia, you're seeing how it's affecting people. You're seeing the House of Grace, which is the group of assassins and this group that is working in the shadows to try to cause chaos, and you follow them. You also see the different world leaders, like King David of Georgia, who is trying to not the U.S. Georgia, like Georgia in Europe. Anyway, you see King David of Georgia, who is trying to balance his personal beliefs with his practicality of being the leader of Georgia. And then you also have a lot of other things happening. And you have the Pope shows up, and some of the religious leaders show up and stuff. And so this is quite the epic trilogy in scope, but it doesn't feel daunting. It is not daunting in any way. The books are all about 400 pages. They're very easy reads. It's easy reads. And it's mostly historical fiction, but there is fantasy. There is a magic system kind of thing here. One of our main characters has the magic, and so mostly what I've been talking about so far has been without spoilers for the first two books. So if you're interested in the first two books, go on in. But in order to talk about the finale, I need to talk about the setup for it, which requires you to know about what happens in the first two books. So just note that I love this trilogy and I love this book. So just be forewarned, I'm going to talk about stuff that happened in the first two a little bit. All right, you guys here? All right, let's go ahead and talk about it. So when the last book ended, you had Temujin had taken over Hulagu's power, had dethroned Hulagu, and was now the Khan of in charge of the Ilkhante. And then you also had Kokachin as she's separated from Layla. You also have Kaivan, who is now trying to work against the Golden Horde. And you also have the rumors of Timur. And that was very interesting. Most of the historical stuff in here is pretty historically accurate. But Timur, he moved up Timur the Lame, or also known as Timur-Lame. He moved up his story in the timeline. Timur-Lame doesn't come in until about 100 years later in real history, but he moves him up. And when I was doing research, because I teach history and the Mongols come up briefly in my high school studies, I'm not the most studied person on the Mongols, but I generally know about Genghis and Kublai and Marco Polo and Hulagu Khan. Like, I knew all of them going in. And so when I got Mata Timur, I was like, that seems wrong. There seems to be a Mongol leader named Timur who existed in the 1200s, so maybe that's who it meant here, but it really seemed like they were referencing Timur the Lame, so I'm not entirely sure on that. But still, you have all those different Khans. You have the Golden Horde, you have the Ilkhanate, you have Kublai's stuff down in China, and you have all the infighting that's happening, and Temujin is trying to hold it all together, and I really enjoyed reading Temujin trying to hold it all together. You also have his difficulty of, his being part of the magical group, and he keeps having to kill off the magical people because they're trying to kill him. And you see him feel so isolated, and I loved reading about his isolation in here. You also have Kokachin's story, which this was my favorite Kokachin book. I should say, I liked her story at the very beginning of the Judas Blossom, but as it's progressed, I was like, it's not my favorite. And her story was not my favorite in The Blood Dim Tide. But I loved her story here. This is my favorite story of Kokachin's. I really found her really fascinating, and when she has to go and defend who she has to defend in this book, I thought it was brilliantly set up. I thought it was greatly set up. I really enjoyed it. It could have gone, actually I would have added a little bit more to her story because I thought it was going so well, but it still ends pretty sweet. Then you also have the story of Kaivan, who had a great story here. He has basically the action scenes. He has, he's setting up stuff to fight against the other Mongols, to protect the Ilkhanate that he hates. It's really great. Everything with Kaivan was just so good in here, and I loved his storyline through and through. Now, there's one thing in here that would be a major, massive spoiler, so I'm not going to discuss it. All I will say is that there were many, if you've seen the TV show Game of Thrones, you've seen Season 8, there were many, many things that Game of Thrones Season 8 did that were controversial, that Game of Thrones messed up. I would argue that what they tried to do in this book is very similar to one of the things done in Season 8, and it's brilliant here, and it failed in Season 8. And if you've been following along with the story, you will know why it is brilliant here, and if you watch the Game of Thrones, you know why it fails there. But it was a brilliant move on Stephen Aryan's part. It is gutsy. It is a gutsy move, but it worked, and I really appreciate what he did with that there. So I won't spoil what that is, because there were. I think I'm safe saying that because there's so many gutsy things and that were messed up in Game of Thrones Season 8. So I think I'm pretty safe with that. But if you've read this book, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. I do want to point out, and by the way, say thank you to Angry Robot Books. They sent me a physical copy, but I actually read it through NetGalley because they approved me for NetGalley. So thank you. Angry Robot Books for doing this, and even if I had to purchase these books on my own, they still would have been, which I did have to purchase Blood Dim Tide on my own, they still were 5 stars all the way. This is a fantastic trilogy, one of my favorite trilogies currently in publication. Honestly, Stephen Aryan nailed the ending so well. So this book was fantastic. It's going to be tough to dethrone this for Book of the Month, and this is the first book I read in the month of May. So if you've read The Sorrow of the Sea, which I'm sorry, I can't say that without thinking of Indiana Jones, the first Indiana Jones, where John Rhys Davies goes, "I am the monarch of the sea." Whenever I read this title, I read, "I am the sorrow of the sea." All right, that's really cheesy. Anyway, if you've read The Sorrow of the Sea, let me know your thoughts. And if you have read the other books, let me know your thoughts. And if you've read Stephen Aryan's other books, I just bought 2 of his other books from Angry Robot Books. I'm really excited to read them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.